Joe Manchin was on, I think it's CNN, I'm not sure. He was on, and he's from West Virginia, right? So he's got a problem. Yeah, it's on CNN with Chris Cuomo. He's got a problem because it's a big Trump state and it's a big coal state. So he's looking at this thing going like, oh, good, bankrupt my state. That's just what I need. That's how I'm going to run on that. I'm going to win re-election on that. And listen to what he says about the Green New Deal.
The Green New Deal was a dream. It's not a deal. It's a dream. And that's fine. People should have dreams. In the perfect world, what they would like to see. I got to work with the realities, and I got to work the practical, what I have in front of me. I got to make sure our country has affordable, dependable, reliable energy 24/7. But you can't just be a denier and say, well, I'm not going to use coal, I'm not going to use natural gas, I'm not going to use oil. And you have to understand also the climate. When we talk about global climate, Chris, it's the globe. It's not North American climate, it's not the United States climate, it's the globe. How do we bring on China and India and everybody else who are great uses of carbon right now and polluters of carbon to be carbon free also by using technology?
He says it's a dream, but what is the dream? What is the dream? Is the dream, that the weather's going to be perfect, that there's not going to be any... Let's think about this for a minute, because sometimes, people say, oh, the ends don't justify the means. But my question is always, what's the ends? Because sometimes the ends justify the means, but what is the end here? What are they looking for? There's a piece in the New York Times, a former newspaper, on Knucklehead Road, where the stupidest people who can actually write go to express their opinions. So let's take a trip to the New York Times and Knucklehead Road.
Oh, Hetty, hey, oh, Hetty, ho, let us go waltzing down to Knucklehead Road.
So, first of all, the piece is it's by Jedediah Britton Purdy, and the Green New Deal is what realistic environmental policy looks like. And it has this picture. Do we have the picture from this? Yeah, there it is. It's people wearing T-shirts that says, I have a right to a good job and a livable future. Somebody who was wearing that T-shirt didn't have a father, or didn't have a very good father, someone to tell him, you know what, the world doesn't owe you a living. The world does not owe you a living. You go out and make the living, because otherwise you're living off people who did. I mean, this is the thing. When people talk about billionaires and this guy's too rich, it's because he took the risks. He made the investments. Some people risked their lives. They bet their lives that they could make a fortune, and they did. And now these people are saying, oh, yes, but I have a right to what you have. I didn't bet anything. I didn't do any work. I haven't done anything except stand there with a T-shirt and my fist in the air, but I deserve this too. And the guy writes, he says, the deeper point of the Green New Deal is that any economic policy is a jobs policy. The oil and gas sector provides at least 1.4 million American jobs, more if you believe industry estimates, and depends on public subsidies and infrastructure. You might say that producing the disaster of global climate change has taken a lot of economic policy and produced a lot of jobs programs. Reversing direction will take the same. Since environmental policy can happen only through economic policy, there is no avoiding decisions about what sorts of work there will be. Now, what he's saying here, and he does say this explicitly, is that since the market won't take care of the environment, and there's a certain truth to that. The government does have to do things to protect the environment, because no part of the market system will necessarily do that. Since the government has to do something, these jobs are going to be government jobs, and if we're going to completely control the environment, which we obviously have the power to do, just ask Alexandria Occasional Cortex, she knows. And so we have the power. All the jobs are going to be government jobs. That's the dream. The dream is to replace private industry with socialism. This notion that because oil has to ship on roads and roads are paid for by the state, that somehow the state is subsidizing the oil industry, that is nonsense. There are certain things that government does. Very few. Most of the things the government does in this country, it shouldn't do. And if it didn't do, they would work better. But the dream is basically, it's Rousseauian primitivism. You saw Avatar, Dances with Wolves, Pocahontas. They're all the same movie, right? The civilized man comes to the natives, the primitive natives, and finds that their way of life is really the good way of life, and our way of life is rife with evil. That is the way that it works. And I always make fun of Avatar, because in Avatar, all the primitive people have all the things that you only get through oil. They have things that fly because they have dragons. They have lights because their magical trees light up. They have energy that comes from this clean tree, endless energy. They treat their women as equals, which only happens in a technological society. You can't treat women as equals in a technological society, because they keep getting pregnant on you. That's why. You have to take care. If you're going to keep the tribe alive, you got to protect the women. You got to keep them, where you can see them, and the men have to go out and fight. All of that stuff, that equality stuff, is all technological, and you need oil to do it. So it's just the dream of primitivism. And you know, I went on Knowles' show and made this joke, but that progressivism is primitivism. I mean, the people with tattoos all over their bodies, with rings in their noses, basically saying we've got to get rid of industry, we've got to get rid of oil, bring back the jungle, and then we'll really have progress because we'll all be running through the jungle with rings in our noses. You know, that is what progressivism is. That's the dream, and that dream has been destroying things at least since the French Revolution. The dream of primitivism has been destroying things. Another fantasy that the left is selling us.